Final section in Chapter 23, review. We start off with a discussion of blood. There is a chart in Section 12 of your textbook. You have this tube there shown on that page, which I've drawn on the board. If they were to take blood from your arm, put it in a tube, and spin it down, the cells would sink, forming a packed cell volume. Now, the fluid up here is the blood plasma. Approximately 55% of whole blood is plasma. The remaining 45% are the blood cells. The vast majority of them are red blood cells, shown here as RBCs. And then there's a thin layer, which includes white blood cells and platelets. Refer to the chart and to your notes. Red blood cells are erythrocytes. They have hemoglobin, they carry oxygen, they're very, very abundant. It says 5 to 6 million per cubic millimeter of blood. Now a millimeter is about as thick as a dime. Take a tiny cube about that size, you got 6 million blood cells in it. Red blood cells, that's how numerous they are, that's how small they are. Leukocytes are white blood cells. Now they're not shown here in white because they're shown here as stained, where the nucleus would be stained purple and you'll see the granules. There are different kinds of white blood cells in here, but they're all for body defense, immune system functions, and so forth. We basically save the discussion of their individual functions until the immune system chapter, but they're for body defense. Platelets are itty-bitty cell fragments for blood clotting. Now, speaking of blood clotting, that's in Section 14. But in Section 14, it discusses the process of forming a blood clot. Now, injury to a blood vessel, such as a cut or a tear, exposes the blood to the connective tissue of the blood vessel wall. Ordinarily, the blood is only in contact with the epithelial tissue. So that's what triggers the blood clot, damage to a blood vessel. Now, platelets become sticky and they form a platelet plug. They produce chemicals. These chemicals start a chain reaction, including converting a substance called prothrombin into thrombin, which then in turn converts fibrinogen into fibrin. Fibrin is a fibrous protein mesh that traps blood cells to form a blood clot, sealing the cut so that a person doesn't bleed to death. Now, bring that back to heart disease. The reason why people on heart disease are often on blood thinners prevent unwanted clots because atherosclerosis also damages blood vessels and can generate abnormal blood clots. So here, in that case, that kind of damage to the blood vessel damages the vessel, generating clots even though there's no cut. So that's why they're on blood thinners. Now, Section 15, it just discusses stem cells. Your blood cells are being manufactured continuously from stem cells in your bone marrow to produce all your types of blood cells. Now, this section discusses adult stem cell research for dealing with such things as leukemia. And that concludes Chapter 23. Be sure to study the notes and look at the book accordingly.